The next 4 Star Wars movies already have their release dates set, and it seems like no one is talking about this. The Mandalorian and Grogu, Rey's new Jedi Order movie, the Dawn of the Jedi, and even Dave Filoni's MandoVerse film will all be released by the end of 2028. And not only that, but I think there will be a third MandoVerse movie created by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to finish off the Mandalorian story in a full trilogy. Now, a lot of this is coming from the same guy who's been talking about the Mando movie for months now before it was even announced, and the same guy who has covered all the Rey movie madness before anyone else. This is Jeff Snyder from the Hot Mic podcast. He is probably one of the best insiders when it comes to Star Wars news. And now he is saying that he has heard from his sources inside of Lucasfilm that the release dates for these movies are set. Now, although Jeff is confirming these dates, you have to take it with a grain of salt because he might be wrong. However, there is a ton of other evidence that is backing these claims. One of the biggest reasons that these reports are being believed is because Disney themselves announced 3 untitled Star Wars movies last June. Disney told us over 7 months ago when the next Star Wars movies would be coming, and those release dates are set in stone. Unless some pandy rolls into town or all of Hollywood decides to go on strike again, these release dates are set. So the first date that was announced and the release date of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie will be May 22nd of 2026. Now, we know for a fact that this will be the Mandalorian and Grogu movie because Lucasfilm themselves confirmed this. Last week when they announced the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, they also announced that this movie would be the first Star Wars movie back in theaters since 2019's Rise of Skywalker. The next film on this slate is the Daisy Ridley-led film. This will follow Rey as she begins her new Jedi Order 15 years after the events of the sequel trilogy. And this movie will most likely release on the second announced date on December 18th of 2026. Yes, you heard that correct. We are getting 2 Star Wars movies in 2026, 7 months apart, after we haven't gotten a Star Wars movie in 7 years. Now, the reason I said most likely with this Rey movie and not 100% fact is because of the conversation about delays around this Rey movie over the last week. The Rey character and an extension of the sequel trilogy itself is a very polarizing topic in the Star Wars fandom. And with rumors even before this movie begins production of a delay is not a good sign. And let's be honest, with Lucasfilm, almost anything can happen. But I did clear up all these conflicting reports about the Rey movie being delayed in this video right here. And now there is one more release date for an untitled Star Wars movie. However, we have 2 more movies left to go over. I'll get to that in 1 second. This final release date is December 17th of 2027, almost exactly 1 year after the release of the Rey movie in 2026. This will tell the story of the origins of the Jedi 25,000 years before the prequel trilogy, before the Jedi and the Sith are even at odds. It'll be the first ever Force users and of course the first ever lightsaber created. I mean, let's be honest, that movie's gonna be incredible. But now we're out of release dates, but we still have one more movie that was announced at Star Wars Celebration last year, and that is the Dave Filoni Mando-Verse movie. And this is when Jeff Snyder comes into play. Disney themselves confirmed those release dates and confirmed that The Mandalorian and Grogu would be the first movie to release and the Rey movie would be the second movie to release. However, Jeff Snyder has just reported that the Dave Filoni directed Mando-Verse movie is going to come out in 2028. No specific date in 2028 just yet, but I would assume that it would be in May. And the reason I think this is going to be in May is because the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, the first of the MandoVerse films, is also being released in May. And this leads me to the MandoVerse trilogy theory. Star Wars has always been told in trilogies. From the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy to the sequel trilogy, there's always trilogies. Now, there is exceptions. You have one-off movies like Solo, a Star Wars story, and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. However, due to the box office failure of Solo, a Star Wars story, Disney and Lucasfilm have decided to stop doing the spin-off, one-off Star Wars story movies, which is why I believe that all of these movies, The Mandalorian and Grogu, The Dawn of the Jedi, and the Rey movie, are all starts to new trilogies, but that is a conversation for another time. The MandoVerse trilogy already has 2 of the 3 movies announced. So with the first movie of this trilogy being released in May of 2026, and now Jeff Snyder confirming that the second movie will come out in 2028, we can assume probably May, then using our very smart Star Wars brains, we can assume that the third movie of the trilogy will come out in May of 2030. 2 years in between each movie, just like the sequel trilogy, but this time, hopefully, it will be more planned out by John and Dave. But tell me what you think. Are you excited for these release dates and these 4 movies on the horizon? And do you think the MandoVerse will actually get a trilogy? If you do want a trilogy, you don't want to miss this video where I dive deep into why I think the MandoVerse is definitely getting a trilogy.